Hospital, Portless Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order. Welcome to Hapanwo TV. Well, it's actually New Year's Eve, and I'm sort of in the count. I'm counting down, to the big moment. You think I'm talking about the New Year, don't you? Midnight? No, I'm talking about 11 p.m. because, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, New Year's Eve is not just about the New Year. It's about Brexit, because 11 p.m. is the moment. Well, it's not the moment of Brexit, because you remember the video I made. I'll put a link in the description box to my Brexit portal. But you remember the video I made 11 months ago in central London, where the actual Brexit moment was 11 p.m. on January the 31st. That was the moment of Brexit, when Britain officially leaves the European Union. Now, this actually leads to a bit of a conundrum. I mean, what is Brexit Day? Because, I call that Brexit Day. However, some people call June the 23rd Brexit Day, Independence Day, and of course, it's possible that some people start calling this evening Brexit Day as well. That is December the 31st, because there's three separate days. I think we should just celebrate them all. What do you know? What do you reckon? Do you think we should just celebrate them all? And as it happens, just like I did 11 months ago, I've got a bottle of the old poor man's bubbly, poor man's champagne, Prosecco Scalini Grande Query. This is extra dry Prosecco. It's I think I had the other one last time, but poor man's champagne. You've got to have it on one of these events. My disclosure champagne, of course, is different. It's Perry. Still under my bed. Still waiting for when I get it out this year. Yeah, that's a video coming up, actually. The video I'm making now, just to take this off here now. You've got to do this carefully so it doesn't go everywhere, but here we go. So I just take the wire bit off. It is like champagne in the sense, pressurised bottle in the same way, and you have like a cork you've got to pull out, but then sometimes it goes pop, and then when the pressure is released, you get a massive, like, boom. I'll put that down. Okay, here we go. So if it doesn't do the thing the racing drivers do. Here we go. Nearly there. I couldn't be a waiter, could I? Nearly there. Ooh, there we are. Oh, pop! I love the smell of that smell. It's lovely. See a little bit of vapour coming off it there. I love that popping sound. Right, so let me pour a glass. It's a bit. It's very, very frothy when it first comes out. You get a massive head on it. Sometimes it overflows the bottle. I'll lick the bottle. I'm the only one drinking from this tonight. Yeah, so do you remember I embedded a countdown clock on Hapanwo Voice? The Brexit countdown clock. Well, what's happened is the people who created it have reset it. And I'll just show you. Here, look, you can see there. There's a countdown. I'll just see if you can focus on that. 28 minutes 29 seconds, see, till 11 p.m. And so they've reset the countdown clock for basically the deal, introduction of the Brexit deal, and that's what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen. That's what's going to happen at 11 p.m. this evening. And by the time I upload this, it'll be long after that, because I've actually got another video I'm planning for tonight. Now, I should apologise. Actually, my UFO disclosure video 2021. Which is sort of traditional for New Year's Day, I haven't done yet. I've done a shorter, more light-hearted video, which you probably have seen by now, and I hope you found it amusing to watch as I found to produce it. But, so I will be doing my first UFO disclosure video 2021. Don't worry, that's coming, that's in the pipeline. But just for now, I'm doing this instead, and which will probably be uploaded a couple of days, maybe the 2nd. Because the 1st of December is I don't like to upload more than one video a day, unless it's like a series, but this particular video is going to be uploaded probably the 2nd, which is bloody Saturday. That's probably when you're watching this, I think, if you watch it when I've uploaded it. Now, The deal, yes, that's right, the deal. There was a lot of talk about the deal. Getting Brexit out of the way, and I said this at the time, that it wouldn't be over. Brexit Day 11 months ago was just the start. And I still think it's just the start, you see, because what's happened is there is now a Brexit deal after a lot of hooing and hawing and messing around. I really wasn't sure where we were going to go with this. I certainly thought there'd be an attempt at an extension. Indeed, there was an attempt to extend the transitional process. The transitional process is basically they call it the transitional period. That is between Brexit and when the deal is introduced. The deal is basically our new relationship as an independent nation with the European Union, which is primarily economic. It covers other things as well, law, travel, stuff like that. And I thought they're going to try and drag. Firstly, they're going to go for an extension, and they did make a half-hearted attempt, but it didn't work. Now the good news, I mean, this again is where you see the difference. Just as in the pre-Brexit period, you see in the post-Brexit period the difference between. So I'm just keeping an eye on the clock. The difference between Theresa May and Boris Johnson. Theresa May, you remember her 1,000 wasted days? I'm not going to reiterate everything because I mean I've covered this in other videos and other Panwo voice articles, other Panwo radio articles. But basically, they accused Theresa May of having 1,000 wasted days because she just basically did nothing. And it wasn't wasted days. Her purpose was not to do Brexit. Her purpose was to stop it. Her purpose was to sabotage and derail and basically throw spanners in the works wherever she could to stop it happening. Boris Johnson comes into power, and literally he does more in 6 days than she does in 6 months. He gets it underway. And to be honest, to give him his credit, and I'll say a bit more about Boris later on himself, and I've done an entire video called "Why I Still Support Boris." I'll put a link in the description box to that. But if I remember, no, I'm not going to write it. I'm not going to make a note of it. The thing about it is he has taken a very hard line throughout this whole negotiation period. That's the good thing. There was a momentum, and he kept it going. He took a tough line, whereas Theresa May took a very, well, because she was trying to simply undo the whole thing, she made the pretense of half-heartedly doing Brexit when really she was just trying to stop it. Which is why she ummed and ahed and she agreed to delays. All 4 of the bloody delays. Boris said, no, we're gonna get it done. January 31st we're out, and we were out. I'm a bit tipsy already because I've had a bit of wine actually, because it is New Year's Eve. 24 minutes and counting. And then the New Deal comes into the way. The introduction of the New Deal is not Brexit, it's just when we become an independent nation, not just nominally, but in terms of our economics and law. That's when this New Deal is introduced. The strength of Boris Johnson was that he refused to take no deal off the table. And this is something that Theresa May would never do. She would never deal with it because, you know, she always went along with this line, you know, I mean, she even actually uttered the classic Ramona buzzword. Crashing out without a deal. Crashing out without a deal. You know, Britain is like something thrown through a door, and there's splintered wood and broken glass everywhere, and the dead start rising from the graves, and as Godzilla comes out in the ocean and starts tramping through the countryside, eating up the buildings. Yeah, I mean how the Ramonas portrayed it. Project Fear portrayed it that way. That's what they call it. They call it crashing out without a deal. And the very imagery of that term was completely misleading. There's nothing wrong with the World Trade Organization and its barley package. It works perfectly well. And all that would have happened if we didn't get a deal was that would be introduced. The barley package would be introduced, and it would function perfectly adequately for a temporary period until such time as we could, in such time as we could negotiate a different conditions. You see, the barley, it's not set in stone. WTO, the barley package, you simply in a sense it is a deal. It's just a template deal created by the World Trade Organization. It would be better, you see, because up till now, in fact, up until right since Brexit Day until 22 minutes and 4 seconds from now, we've been most of the laws and economic conditions that were in place when we were in the European Union still apply. We're only nominally free. After, in 21 minutes and 49 seconds, 48 seconds, we will be literally independent in terms of, like I say, law and economics. Or will we? I'll come to that in a minute, because I do have some misgivings. This is not just a celebration. So Boris took this very tough line and got really most of what he wanted. I mean, the big sticking point was the fishing, and I'll come to that in a minute, because the fishing issue has been the biggest problem with this. That one of the worst excesses of the EU so-called membership, which is, in other words, it's called membership, it's actually being a client state to an empire, is that they've basically taken over our seas. Our territorial waters are basically owned by them, which means basically EU fishing boats from the other EU nations can just tear through our fisheries, dropping their nets where they like, destroying entire cultures, especially in the northeast of England. The reason there were so many Brexit voters in the northeast is because fishing is a huge part of their culture. You know, the fishy on a dishy thing. That was devastated by the common fisheries policy, and this is the thing that the EU refused to budge on. In fact, the European Council and the French even threatened to veto the deal. Now, which is astonishing, because, you know, old soy boy Macron, he's trying to act tough at the moment, you know, because he has to beat Le Pen in the next election, although it's probably going to be rigged like the American one wasn't. Yeah. So he's now trying to act tough and trying to act like he's her, like he's a Marine Le Pen. But there's no point to Emmanuel Macron. You know, she's got bigger balls than you, and she always will. And the point is that Macron when he used his seat on the European Council to agree to extensions to the Brexit process, when he could have vetoed it then. Is he going to veto this? I don't know. I mean, would he have vetoed it? I don't know. It's all academic now anyway, for reasons I'll come to. But they started making ridiculous concessions, like they said, oh, let us use your territorial waters and we'll sell you any fish we catch. We'll sell back 80% of the fish we catch at a discount price. And Boris very sensibly said, well, no, don't worry, mate. Forget it, mate. Save yourself the bother. We'll catch the fish ourselves. So we were heading for a point where I really thought, I wrote a couple of articles saying no deal is coming, no deal is coming. And to be honest, that would be a fantastic thing. It would be fantastic if in 18 minutes and 49 seconds we left the European Union without a deal. In other words, under the barley package, because that'd be fine. As I said, the barley package works perfectly well. Now, eventually, Boris had a date with Ursula von der Leyen, President of the EU Commission, and to try and make some last-ditch attempt, but it didn't. The date didn't go very well. I don't think they'll be seeing each other again. But he refused. Again, she tried to persuade him to take no deal off the table, and he wouldn't. And so they parted on good terms, and I think Ursula has reactivated her Tinder profile. Well, Boris then, unfortunately, it seems this was all bark and no bite. But he put the Royal Navy's River-class ships on standby. These are small coastal ships, specifically designed for patrolling fisheries. He put them on standby to go out basically and arrest any EU fishermen trying to invade our waters, you know. I mean, there was a lot of bravado. I mean, there was a lot of talk about, you know, torpedo the bastards and things like that. No one meant it seriously. We don't actually want to have a war over this. We don't want to have another Cod War like we did with Iceland in the 60s and 70s. But it definitely, I would have said, if it had been a no deal, then that would have had to be enforced with naval with naval assets, you know. And then there was all kinds of other things was going on because this will make you laugh. While all this was going on, Hounslow Borough Council in London, I know someone actually who used to live there. They don't live there anymore, but they used to live there. They did this. I've seen this several private houses I still see have the EU flag in them. There's a guy who lives not far from me actually. He's got the EU flag on a card in his window, in his front window, and I think, I just thought you sad obscurantist little git. Anyway, Hounslow Borough Council are still flying the gender study professor's apron from a flagpole on all their official buildings. They put out a statement that said, "We will continue to fly the flag of the European Union, even if we are out of the European Union, because we believe it, because it symbolises tolerance and inclusion and diversity." Yeah, local governments are just disgusting, aren't they? Yeah, if you walk through London and you're lost, you look up at some council building, you see the gender study professor's apron flapping in the breeze, you'll know you're in Hounslow. So, anyway, all this sort of went on until Boxing Day, and then it was this is odd. Even at Christmas, you don't get a break. It was Boxing Day. The whole thing was sorted out, and that's where you get the term Brexmas. The hashtag Brexmas started trending. Brexit, Christmas, a portmanteau word. People saying Happy Brexmas, Happy Brexmas. Yeah, well, 15 minutes to go. I mustn't miss it. But is it something to celebrate? That's the question. Because the Brexit, Boris, bless his little cotton stocks, came out and announced, "We've got good news. We have a deal." I can't do his voice properly. I tried to impersonate him in the last video I did. But he says, "We have a deal. We have a deal now. I have agreed to something with the EU, and we've all sorted it out. Just has to be passed through Parliament and passed through the EU Parliament and things like that, but it's all sorted." Right, so that was completely out of the blue. I didn't expect that. I was expecting and I was anticipating, I'm looking forward to, quite frankly, a no-deal Brexit. That would have definitely been the best thing we could have done. In fact, to be honest, I mean, I think I said this at the time, I made this point several times. It would have been better if simply on February the 1st we left immediately under WTO terms. We should have just done that. Forget the bloody negotiations, we just leave on WTO, and we immediately, that means we not only leave nominally, we leave in terms of our economic and legal relationship too, in one fell swoop, and then, you know, the dead will not rise from the graves. My screensaver kicked in. I thought that, I did hope that the countdown clock would stop that, but it hasn't. You know, the dead won't rise from the graves, etc., etc. All the terrible, nightmarish portents of doom that the Ramonas, these gutless little quivering Ramonas keep going on about, are completely not going to happen. But then we could at least we could negotiate as a WTO independent nation, and then just sort the deal out then. Sort a new deal out then. It'd be much better than staying under EU rules until we sort out a deal. Just go WTO, then sort out a deal. I mean, we need to clear this ridiculous nonsense up once and for all. You know, divers have found copper and tin ingots lying on the seabed off Weymouth Beach that were deposited there in the shipwreck. They reckon about 6,000 years ago in prehistoric times. And they were being imported from the continent into Britain, right? This is when we were in the bloody Neolithic. This was before Stonehenge was built. And we had international trade. We succeeded, we as Britons, even before Stonehenge was built, succeeded in trading with our continental partners. Now, there was no customs union back then. Nothing like that. There was no special level playing field or anything like that. We succeeded in doing it. Oh, there's this Ramona I know. I actually had to show her a video. There's actually an old Pathé colour movie, just an amateur movie, of British tourists in Greece in 1966 who are doing pretty much what tourists nowadays do. They all shift, they get on a coach, they get on a plane, they land in Greece, they go to the beach, they tour around and things like that, they visit the sites. And this was in 66, before the common market, back then we were still under the Treaty of Brussels and things like that, the earlier incarnations of European unity. So the deal was, what does the deal say? Well, it's a 2,000-page document. I haven't read all of it. Just a second. I've not read all of it. I've read the summary. There's good news, and this is it. There's good news and bad news. Good news is the level playing field. That's all sorted out. Britain has the right to subsidise our own industries. We don't have to abide by basically because what the EU wanted to do was they were saying, oh, we think you should be favouring imports from the European continental dictatorship. Forget your own industries. Boris said, up yours, we're going to subsidise our own industries if we want. It's very too easy to do this. It's simply about balancing import and export duties and things like that. That's how you do it. It's very, very simple to do. Now, that was agreed to. They didn't try to veto that. More good news, we're not in the common market. There was always this kind of Brexit light. There was always this possibility. I mean, there was always a big possibility that we would have what's known as BRINO, Brexit in name only, which is a type of Finlandisation, where we become nominally independent, but basically nothing changed from February the 1st last year. We would just stay basically under EU rules under another name, which would mean we would only be free from the European Union, is nominally but not literally. That hasn't happened. That's the good news. We have not been Finlandised by this empire. We don't have BRINO. There was also the Norway 2.0. Norway, of course, is not a member state technically, but it's within the European Economic Community. It's just never joined the full EU. It's not signed up to the Lisbon Treaty, but it did sign up to the Maastricht Treaty, which means it's inside the single market. Now we're outside the single market. That's a good thing. We're not Norway. We're like every other nation. We're outside the single market, so we control these things ourselves. At least we will in 9 minutes and 14 seconds. Second glass, I think. Can I down a second glass before the big moment? Or maybe not so big. See, you may have noticed I'm not as over the moon now as I was 11 months ago, when I was sitting in this same chair in front of this same camera sipping another bottle of Prosecco. But anyway, more good news first. We're outside the customs zone too. So all this stuff about we will bring Britain into the Schengen zone, it's not going to happen. We're not going to be in the single. We're never going to take the euro. We're outside the common market. We're never going to take the euro. Also, the European Court of Justice. We're no longer underneath their jurisdictions, which means no more banning of carotene in red Leicester cheese and all these other ridiculous things. It means we can go back to imperial measurements if we choose. Do you remember that insanity where a man was, I think he was a grocer or something, or he was a greengrocer. Yeah, he sold vegetables and things like that, and he sold them in pounds and ounces. And a diktat came through from government saying, no, you can't do that, you have to sell them in kilograms and grams. And he says, I'm not going to do that. We fought Napoleon to prevent this, and they actually threatened him with jail. You can mug someone on the street and get away with community service, but they were threatening a man with jail for using pounds and ounces. Oh, good grief. That now nonsense is now out of the window. I always use imperial measurements. Like if you listen to her Panway Radio, my space weather report, you'll notice that I convert all the data into imperial measurements. We can even get away. Good grief! I mean, the world's our oyster now. We can bring back the shilling. We can do away with bloody decimal currency. We can bring back pounds, shillings, and pence. Oh, that'd be wonderful. That'd be a real blow for freedom. That will. I know it's more complicated, but it'd be great. It'd be really great. So that's the good news. Now, what about the bad news? Yeah, this is not. The bad news is, first of all, we're not leaving under no deal, which is what I wanted, which would have been best, which I thought Boris would push. I thought he wouldn't cave in on the fishing. And maybe he hasn't. I mean, Maya Tusi released a video about this, which I'm not sure what to make of it yet. He thinks Boris is playing four-dimensional chess of some kind. But then he has a lot more faith in Boris than I do. I mean, as you know, I've gone off Boris a bit. Not totally. I mean, not completely. I've done an entire video about that. I will put a link in the description box, alright? I will do that. Oh, sod it, I'll make a bloody note. Hang on a sec. Alright, hang on. Come here. I want this. Boris video. Just write it on my hand there. There we go. I've written on my hand so I'll remember. But it is a good thing actually to have as a background video because it explains a hell of a lot about my position. The bad news is, yes, the bad news is of course the fisheries. They basically, as far as the fisheries go, it's like nothing's happened. The common fisheries policy essentially has not been lifted. And now, it's not all bad. Firstly, you see, what the original plan was that they would do this by increasing, because they export so much fish to us, they were going to increase the price by 80%, which would basically mean that there'd be no point. Which means basically fishing boats, there would be no need for the Royal Navy. Fishing boats simply would not enter British waters because they'd never be able to sell anything they caught. But that was reduced to 25%. It's just a 25% price rise now, which means it's still lucrative to eat for EU boats to come into British waters, and that's a concern. It means there still is a profit margin for them and they'll still do it. I mean, the French in particular are really bad. I mean, the French have got into trouble because they've been sailing their trawlers as far away as the Gulf of Guinea, which is basically the West African countries have been complaining for taking their fish stocks. 4 minutes to go, guys. Mustn't miss it. That's the bad news. That's some bad news. That's not been resolved. Now, what they're going to do now is they're going to say there's now a deal where there's an organisation, they're basically kicking the can down the road. They're saying, okay, we'll sort it out over the next 5 years. We'll try and arrange something new over the next 5 years. But for the time being, you just carry on what you're doing. And of course, representatives of the fishing industry are furious at this. They feel betrayed, and I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all. Boris should have walked away, and we should have got a no deal. If we, under the WTO, you see, we could just immediately start implementing securing our own waters, and using naval force if necessary, and that would be the end. And why he put these ships on standby? Oh God! Oh God! Yeah, and he didn't follow through. More bad news. Is there any more bad news? Yeah. Defence. Now, this is something Caroline Stevens used to talk to me about in the shows I did with her, and she's now not speaking to me. And she's not speaking to most people she used to, and I don't know why. No one knows why, but she's now refusing to speak to anyone. She's turned her back on almost everybody. But she brought out the European Central Command, which is a defence issue. Now, what this actually meant was, in a word, I mean, there was a couple of guys talking about this. A couple of veterans were making videos about this, but it referred to a situation where basically the armed forces of all of Europe, not just the EU, Europe in general, will be put under a single centralised command. It would be a kind of NATO for Europe. Just 2 minutes to go, guys. Just 2 minutes. Now, Caroline correctly made this point. This was interestingly the deal was going to be pushed through Parliament on the 24th of June 2016. The government was so confident they were going to get a Remain victory, they were going to push through the Common Defence Policy. The cheeky, arrogant bastards, they were going to do it on the 24th of June. They didn't want to do it beforehand because they know it would help the Leave cause. But they thought, it doesn't matter, just let Leave lose and then we'll dump this great big turd on them. Knowing full well if they'd done it beforehand it would basically secure the Leave victory. As it happens, Leave won anyway. 2 minutes to go. Leave won anyway, but they but they were really, oh dear me, I mean the wickedness of these people is beyond, it's beyond belief. It really is. I've been watching Fall of the Cabal, this long documentary. It's a multi-part documentary by Janet Ossebart, who's in Miles Johnston's film like To Catch a Circle Maker, and it's really, really good. Oh, let me just show you my face nappy. Hang on. Because in my local shop, right, there's a place where they literally won't let you through the door unless you've got one of these on. And now what I could do is I could get an exemption card. I know a lot of people who just say, well, I'm exempt, or just tell them they're exempt, but I do this instead. I put this on. Where we go one, we go all. So I really trigger them. I mean, it's much more fun that way. You know, I always wear, well, I've got some other masks with subversive messages on. 1 minute to go, guys. 1 minute to go. I've got other masks with subversive messages on, just to like really, really trigger them, trigger the bastards. But anyway, it's a really good documentary, Fall of the Cabal. It's really, really good. Okay, 40 seconds to go. 40? You can just see it there, and there we are. Can you see that? There we go. Do you want to keep... just make sure I focus it. There we go. 33, 32, 31, 30. 30 seconds to go, guys. Yes. 26, 25, 24, 23, 22, 21. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there, guys. 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And we're out. We're out in every way it can be timed as being out. However, I don't hear any fireworks for that, but I have heard a couple of fireworks outside for midnight, which in 1 hour's time, of course, is midnight when it's 2021. So, but we don't know where, like I say, we don't, the fishermen, I think British fishermen will not be celebrating right now. Nor I think should anyone in the armed forces celebrate right now. Nor for that matter I don't think anyone really should be celebrating, even though, well, I've got my Prosecco, haven't I? Because, as I said, the response has been, from the, I must say, from the Leave community, the response has been lukewarm approval. And I must admit, I'm not completely against celebrating. I don't think we should simply stick our tongues out and fold our arms. Even if you are a fisherman or you are a soldier, I don't think you should do that. It's not total and utter dismay right now. It could have been a lot worse. It could have been one hell of a lot worse. You know, there were people who nominally leavers who were saying, "Oh, let's stay in the customs union. Why can't we be part of the single market? Come on, let's, you know, the European Central Bank, they're great. You know, having the euro just as a dual currency in Britain." They were actually saying things like this. It could have been one hell of a lot worse, and it's not over yet. You know, my Artusi was saying on his channel, this is the good side of the fishing thing, right? Apparently the deal can be, even though there's a 5-year, another bloody can-kicking period now of 5 years while they sort out the fishing, it can, the fishing deal, as dictated by this new agreement, can be terminated at any time within 12 months' notice unilaterally. And Maya thinks actually that Boris is just planning to rip it up. He may even be doing it right now. Just the moment the countdown's ended, we just rip it up. I hope so. I really hope he is. That'd be really great. Again, as far as we know, there's been no mention of defence, as far as I know. So this means potentially we still are under the European Central Command, which should worry you. If it should worry all of us, actually, because that includes Britain's nuclear deterrent, the Trident submarines. Anyway, since Boxing Day, when the deal was first signed, it's been passed by Parliament. This happened yesterday. Parliament passed it easily, even though The Lib Dems were vetoing it. The Lib Dems voted against it. Keir Starmer voted for it, and a couple of the Corbynistas walked out. The SNP voted against the deal, and Nicola Sturgeon made a lot of very public noises about how she was against this deal, and she was actually thought it would be better to leave with a no deal, which completely contradicts everything she said before. Because she said, like a couple of years ago, that, well, we can't have no deal here, we've got to go with a deal, oh, hey, we've got to have a deal. So she contradicts herself, and this is because, of course, she's a globalist whore. And all she cares about, of course, is getting Scotland into the EU, from which it can become a province of the European Union. Same with Plaid Cymru. You seen my film, Why I'm Not a Welsh Nationalist? And that's it. It seems to, so far it's quite good. Believe it or not, even the sticking points, that is the Crown colonies, that is the Crown territories, that is Isle of Man, Gibraltar is sorted out. Northern Ireland, it seems to be, believe it or not, there's no fences going up on the Northern Ireland border. Seems to be okay so far. But it's not perfect. We should have gone WTO. We should have gone WTO, and to be honest, I don't think we're out of the woods even if we had been, because what for example, if Labour get into power in the next election? There'll be another election. There's another election which is due, I think, 2024. There could be one. It could be one. I mean, Boris is only Prime Minister till 2024. Just over 3 years, or December 2024. In which case Labour could get in. It's who knows what. See, Labour and the Lib Dems and they're all basically everyone apart from Boris and, well, the loyal Tories around him right now basically think Brexit was a bad idea. And just because we're out now, we're out in every way it's meant, you know, you can say we're out, been out for a couple of minutes now, doesn't mean we can't get back in it. It was bloody Verhofstadt himself, didn't he? Do you remember that little half-smiley, smirking little joke he made? The door is always open, you can always come back in, you know. And don't be at all surprised, in fact I'll absolutely predict this, that sometime before the next general election you're going to see a rejoin alliance, which will consist of Labour, Lib Dems, SNP, Green, probably the Green Party as well, and of course Plaid Cymru. It's astonishing that, you know, it's the Scottish National Party, and Plaid Cymru, it actually comes from Plaid Genedlaethol Cymru. Genedlaethol means nationalist. They call themselves nationalists, and they are the opposite of nationalists. They are imperialists. They are imperialists. They are empire loyalists. You know, they are bloody hell. It's unbelievable. They're empire loyalists every bit as much as the black and tans, and that. You know, it's astonishing, this double think these people have. It really is. That tastes good. And I also think what happens across the Atlantic is going to be very important for Brexit. I think President Trump has to succeed. I mean, sorry, I must have to rephrase that. He has to succeed in playing his next round of golf, doesn't he? Yes, because the thing about it is, like, Joe Biden, the next president of the United States, who won fair and square, is very, very keen. He's very anti-Brexit, just like Obama, very anti-Brexit. Clinton, the Clintons as well. They're all basically, Trump is the only pro-Brexit president. All the others are against it. So the question is, if Joe Biden succeeds in taking his rightful place as president of the United States, he may well collaborate with the Ramonas and the Rejoin Alliance. Whereas if Trump succeeds in his unlawful plan to stay himself as president, because of course he lost the election, but he wants to remain president. If he succeeds in that plan, things will be a lot better in terms of Brexit. And what about Boris? I mean, I don't want to repeat I don't want to repeat any points that I made in the video that I'm going to remember to put into the description box. But you know, what's happened to him? I mean, I know the people like Caroline Stevens said, well, he was an insider from the beginning, Ben, and we saw it and you couldn't. Ha ha, aren't we clever and aren't you stupid? I don't accept that, for reasons I explain in the background link film, why I still support Boris. But somebody obviously has some kind of leverage over him. And I said, you know, maybe Terry Winter, of course, has made a joke about this. But is it possible they have his fiancée and his newborn child, who's I think he's about 5 months now, his child and his wife in custody, and they're basically threatening them, they're holding them for ransom? And seriously, I mean, it's not the Brexit thing. He's done reasonably well on Brexit, although, like I said, he didn't go for WTO. He should have refused this deal, but didn't. However, generally, compared to Theresa May and David Cameron, he's like a hero. But look what he's done with the bloody COVID-19. He has 100% cucked to the vaccine agenda and the lockdown agenda. He's just basically parroted the WHO and all that stuff. So what's happened to him? Why won't he make a stand? And that's the problem. The problem is the man behind Brexit. The man himself has been compromised. Now, you see, the deal, as I said, the deal could have been a lot worse. I mean, as I said, the response from the Leave community has been lukewarm approval. Nigel Farage actually did a video saying the deal's not bad, it's good enough. Maya Tusi said the same thing, essentially. Several others have. Now, the UKIP guy, there's a UKIP guy in BitChute, he says he's totally against it. I mean, I understand his point. I mean, I wish we'd gone WTO. But compared to Brino, it's better than Brino. That's all I can say. But Boris, I mean, Boris has to find some way to get back to where he was. He has to. Or the globalists are simply going to suck us back into the hole. And if they have enough power to control him, then we're in trouble. And do bear in mind, you know, I mean, he actually said when he was talking about the proms, you know, these concerts, this classical music festival, he just says, though there's people who don't want me to say this. I think I made this point at the time. There's people who don't want me to say this. I mean, he's the bloody Prime Minister. What do you mean there's people who don't want you to say this? You're the Prime Minister, Boris. So, a lot, I think, is going to depend on whether he can get them back. And as I said, I've sent him a link to the video Who Dares Wins, which is a film actually from in the 80s. It's quite a good film actually, a thriller about some terrorists who capture some important people and keep them hostage, and they're rescued by British Special Forces, and hopefully that'll give Boris some ideas. I don't know. Now, anyway, I'm a little bit tipsy. I have actually been this evening because I've been drinking wine as well. But I'm going to finish the Prosecco. I might do some studio work on top of this film, so what you might see might include some studio shots. Hello everyone. Yes, I have actually decided to do some studio work on this film. Just cover some of the news stories. Now, I must point out it's the following day now. I'm recording this New Year's Day. I have a same moderate hangover right now. As you probably guessed I was going to have, didn't you? With that Prosecco and the other things I drank, typical New Year's Day. But nevertheless, I shall endeavour to bring you something interesting. Now, I'm going to start here with The Guardian. The Guardian! I haven't done that voice for a while, have I? The first lorries to cross into France as Britain and Europe wake to the new Brexit reality. Oh my God. It sounds horrible. Wake to the new reality. It's like there's thunder in the distance and you realise it's guns, it's gunfire and it's coming your way. The new reality. And it says here, no early signs of chaos as trucks haul goods across the new customs border. There's almost a tone of disappointment in that. We haven't got any early signs of chaos yet, but we do hope they'll turn up later on, because we want Brexit to be a failure. That's the typical Guardian, isn't it? Moments after the UK left the EU with an 11th hour deal, the first trucks hauling goods across the new customs border presented their clearance documents to French agents before loading them onto a train to pass through the Eurotunnel.
Uh, with Britain finally having quit the EU single market and customs union, there's no signs of the feared chaos. Oh, wow. Who is it who said... who was it who said that wouldn't happen? Who are the people who were saying, don't worry, it's going to be fine? We were. The bloody leavers. We were the ones who said, don't worry, it's going to be fine. In fact, yeah, I mean, all the chaos so far in the entire Brexit process has simply been generated by Ramona's trying to sabotage the whole thing. All of it's come from that, from Theresa May onwards. She was the biggest, she was the queen of the saboteurs, but I mean, there's lots of others that have tried. There's just a few witnesses, people who were border officers for the French Border Patrol, and they say everything's fine. The Brexit transitions period ends, leaves Northern Ireland remaining in the EU single market for goods. Ah, yes, this is the backstop. But I mean, now, as I've explained before, that border is one of the most peaceful and functional in the world. It's existed since the partition of Ireland, which, when the Irish Free State was created, what became the Irish Republic. And it's been because of the Anglo-Irish Agreement, that is free passage, dual citizenship, no one has actually... There's never really been any trouble. I mean, of course, there has been some legal loopholes that have been exploited by the IRA and certain pirate radio stations, Miles. But generally speaking, I mean, there's been no real major problem. It's not exactly, the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. And as I said, there's no reason why that should really continue. From Friday morning, individuals and businesses both in the UK and beyond face a dizzying new array of red tape. A good deal of it still to be confirmed, covering everything from travel, residency, work and tourism to the supply of goods and services. Well, firstly, as far as tourism goes, there's none of that at the moment, is there? Thanks to COVID. People lived and worked before the European Union abroad. My own mother was a Dutch woman. She came to Britain in the late 60s, before the EEC, before all of that. So how did she manage that? How did she manage to get into England before the European Union allowed? How did anyone travel between Britain and the EU before the EU between Britain and Europe before the EU existed? It's just this. Why is it suddenly so difficult simply to do something that all nations in the continent, both in the British Isles and on the mainland, did perfectly functionally for centuries? I was going to say centuries, but millennia. I mean, I talked about the metal ingots they found off the coast of Weymouth. So, again, this is just more Project Fear. This is just more... The whole Northern Ireland border situation was simply something engineered by Ramona's to try and throw a spanner in the works. Basically, Theresa May and other people like that. And there's... it says here... Oh, Nicola Sturgeon. Oh, my God. I should point this out. If you scroll down a little bit, in fact, I'll get a screenshot of this. It's Nicola Sturgeon, wee Jimmy Cranky. She tweeted out at midnight, Scotland will be back soon, Europe. Keep the lights on. Oh my God, that was just before midnight. This was like 11:01, and there's a big sign projected, as you can see here. Europe, Scotland, love. This is well, I've made the point already about why in my film why I'm not a Welsh nationalist, which maybe I'll put a link in the description box to that. Just make a note. But yeah, it's it's just bizarre that these people describe themselves as nationalists or anything like that. It's just, I just don't get it. There we go. So Nigel Farage, of course, he was delighted. 25 years ago, they all laughed at me. Well, they're not laughing now. Oh, we've heard of that one. Yeah, he said that certainly in the Parliament. And added, shame the pubs aren't open. So yeah, that's the Guardian's take generally, is of course, they are behind Sturgeon. What Sturgeon wants to do is separate Scotland from the UK so it can then become a EU member state, which is bizarre. Anyone who has any nationalistic sentiments must surely see the bizarre contradiction in that situation. Let's see what the other news reports say. Well, now this is a good one. I've actually captured the thumbnail on the BBC front page rather than the actual article itself, because the homepage thumbnail I think is very good because it's a picture of Big Ben turning 11 p.m. Now, what does that remind you of? I'm sure regular viewers will remember, how long ago was it, when I sang Jerusalem at the top of my voice at 11 p.m. outside that clock tower. It ends up the BBC was reporting on it. I think it was the March. It was one of the delays. I think the second or the third one. But this is slightly. This has a slightly more buoyant tone than the Guardian, I must say, even though it is the BBC, which of course is Ramona Central. A new era has begun for the United Kingdom after it completed its formal separation from the European Union. Yes. The UK stopped following EU rules at 2300 GMT as replacement arrangements for travel, trade and immigration and security cooperation came into force. Yes, and Boris Johnson said the UK had freedom in our hands, with the ability to do things differently and better. I sound like wish I could have done an impression of Boris like that in my last video. Now the long Brexit process was over. It is interesting to think, actually, it's been 4.5 bloody years this has taken. The Article 50 process is just 2 years. It's taken twice the Article 50 process to get this done, because we've had an uphill struggle all the way. We've been swimming against the tide of globalists trying to undo the process. Here we are. But opponents of leaving the EU maintain the country will be worse off. Yeah, it will be. If it's worse off, it's because of these people. It's because of these opponents deliberately causing it to be worse off. Left to its own devices, Brexit will work perfectly well. We as a nation, I don't have to reiterate this point again, I'm just going to say we as a nation have always had a very close relationship with our continental neighbours. Britain is not a remote island. It's actually, in fact, if you stand on the French coast, you can see Britain. It's actually it's above the horizon. On a good, if the weather's clear, you can see the White Cliffs of Dover from Calais. It's across the Straits of Dover. Now, people swim it, for goodness sake. There's races across it. And as I've explained before, trade, travel, tourism, cultural exchange, immigration, these things have gone on between the mainland and the British Isles non-stop throughout history. I myself am a product of that, because my mother was a Dutch woman, my father was a Bristol Welshman. I myself am a product of that interaction. And then we had here, they mentioned Nicola Sturgeon, that big fish, tweeting her crap about Scotland will be back soon. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the problem with Sturgeon is, unfortunately, in terms of the constitutional issue, I don't think you can stop a second independence referendum in Scotland. You could have done otherwise. You could have done, look, the 2014 one you could have said was when they made their mind up. You can't keep having referendums for Scottish independence. It's not fair any more than it's fair having second referendums for Brexit. But that was in a different world. That was in the pre-Brexit world. And now we're in the post-Brexit world. You could legitimately say, and it'll probably go to court, and probably the court will support it, that because constitutionally this is different, Scotland has a right to a second independence referendum. In which case, I beg the Scots to... I'll say more about this at the time. But I covered the first one on Panmo TV. I actually... I sort of changed my mind. I started off being against... Obviously, I'm not Scottish myself. I started off not supporting independence, then supporting independence. Right now, I think I'll come full circle. But I'll say more about that should the time arrive. The BBC's Europe editor, Katja Adler, said there was a sense of relief in Brussels that the Brexit process was now over. I bet. Well, it's a relief for all of us. It really is. I don't think it's over yet. I mean, as I said, there's going to be this rejoin alliance, but it's this long, drawn-out, dragging its heels kind of shite is over now. 3.5 years almost it took to get to Brexit Day itself. it's taken another damn year. It's taken a year after that to do the negotiations. And I think I said last night, my mind's still a bit of a blank because I was drunk, but I really do think that I really did think there'd be an extension to the negotiation period. It would drag on and things like that. The first lorries arriving at the borders entered the UK and EU without delay. 6 freight loads travelling from Holyhead in Wales to Ireland had to be turned away due to not having the correct paperwork. Well, that's if, you know, the paperwork does exist though. So I'd say I hope whoever those drivers were of those lorries, I hope they gave them some kind of plaque or some kind of medal or something to commemorate being the first trade between a free nation and the continent since the bloody Treaty of Brussels, probably the Treaty of Brussels in 1946. It says they're cautiously optimistic that freight volumes will begin to rise again. Yeah, it's obviously the COVID-19 thing has got in the way of that, but really, generally speaking, I don't see why this shouldn't work. There's actually no reason why this shouldn't work at all. And there's actually a picture here of a guy. I don't need to get a screenshot of it, but he's in a lorry and he's well, I will. He's in a lorry and he's like waving proudly as he drives his lorry over the border. He loads onto the Eurotunnel shuttle after the UK left the single market. Yeah, that's the train that carries vehicles through the Channel Tunnel, as opposed to the Eurostar, the train that goes between the cities through the tunnel. So yeah, whoever he is, good luck, mate. You've made history, whoever you are, the unknown lorry driver. Right, now this is very interesting because this is about Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar, I wrongly stated last night that Gibraltar was a crown dependency like the Isle of Man or Jersey. It's not, it's actually British overseas territory. So it's very like St Helena in that respect. I think it even has an airport, but no, I won't go off on a tangent. But Gibraltar, of course, is basically a peninsula off the coast of Spain, and people who go there say it's quite interesting because you walk down the street and all the road signs look British and people speak English and all the signs are in English, but the weather's really nice because it's on the Mediterranean coast. But anyway, Spain has reached a deal with the UK to maintain free movement to and from Gibraltar once the UK formally leaves the EU on New Year's Day. So yeah, this is another thing that was not possible. People said was not possible. You can't have Brexit because what about Gibraltar? How on earth are people going to travel between Gibraltar and Spain? There is the border is it's very widely crossed. I mean, the border between Spain and Gibraltar. I don't know if you need kind of documentation. I'll just check. Right, yeah, thank goodness for the pause button on Wikipedia. It's a very short border, just 3/4 of a mile long, and it does have customs and identity checks. The Guardia Civil, these are the Spanish National Police Force, carries out these checks, so you have to go through these customs. There's also a HM's customs post there as well. And it said here on the 28th of December, Spain's foreign minister announced that cross-border workers who commute between Gibraltar and Spain will be exempt from Spanish border controls after Brexit, even in the event of no deal. Why? Well, why was this such an issue? Why? This was an absolute nothing burger. It really was. This was a nightmare that never happened. And you'll find that exactly the same thing is going to happen with the Isle of Man border. The only reason they made this into such an issue and they stirred it up, Theresa May and people like that, as I said, is because they wanted to sabotage Brexit. They wanted to scare people out of supporting Brexit. And it didn't work. It didn't work, you bastards. So yeah, Gibraltar is a very, very busy border. A lot of Gibraltarians work in Spain and they travel to Spain regularly. And they're going to continue to do so. That's the actual thing. That's the issue. That is basically the whole issue to do with Brexit. That's how it's going to be, and there's nothing to worry about. Now, I must say, this surprised me. We have here a smiling Bojo, who's no doubt he's smiling after everything, but he says here, it says new EU trade arrangements to begin just after the parliamentary vote. This was on New Year's Eve, this was published, and it refers to the upcoming changeover in terms of the deal. And it says Parliament overwhelmingly backed the agreement in a high-speed process on Wednesday, followed by the two sides reaching agreement on Christmas Eve. The UK leaves the EU single market and customs union, but the deal ends the possibility of tariffs on goods. Boris Johnson thanked the MPs and said the destiny of this great country now resides firmly in our hands. Or the destiny of this great country now resides firmly in our hands. Yes, along with the UFOs that keep crashing. Going back to an old video there, previous video. Well, I hope so. I really do. And it did surprise me that the MPs. I really thought there was going to be trouble. Firstly, Labour was split over it. I think a couple of Labour ministers have resigned. Keir Starmer backed it. The Lib Dems and SNPs threatened to block it. But the bill was backed. It was 521 votes to 73. I mean, that is in the Commons. In the Lords, it was formality in the House of Lords. With that kind of mandate from the House of Commons, it's just... but why on earth... I'm really surprised at that, I must say. I'm pleasantly surprised at that. When you consider how Parliament was constantly throwing spanners in the works, to reuse that old analogy, all the way through the Brexit process. Indeed, if you remember the SNP and Corbyn's Labour, they basically bullied Boris Johnson after he ended up with a minority government. They basically used their clout as the majority in the Commons basically to bully him and then block him having a general election. Do you remember that? It was a very nasty trick they played. And they just kept turning down vote after vote after vote, and it was an aching, tortuous, uphill struggle, which astonishes me. It absolutely astonishes me that they go Wednesday evening, they come out with a virtually unanimous decision, and that's it, sorted out. They went in on Christmas Eve, voted, went home for Christmas, and then now we're out. I mean, it just seems to me, it seems almost too easy. I think it's probably what's happened is they've basically given up. They've given up stopping the deal, but this does not mean they're going to give up their globalist agenda. This does not mean, as I think I said last night, that they're going to quietly now allow other countries to leave and things like that, because a lot of other nations are going to follow in our wake. I know there's dissent in the ranks in a lot of countries, especially in Eastern Europe. I know there's a lot of people who are against the EU, and of course, if somehow Marine Le Pen beats Emmanuel Macron, which I hope she will in the French election, although the French election will probably not be rigged, just like the US one was not rigged. Then France will probably come out. I mean, if that happens, then they're in big trouble, because that's Britain, France, two of the three big economies of Europe gone. That'll be the nail in the coffin for the entire federation, and then the globalists will be back to square one. They'll have to abandon the two-stage Stalinist plan, maybe go for a one-stage plan, which I think they're probably doing anyway with the coronavirus. But that's a subject for another video.
But I think the best thing I do possibly is maybe before the end of the first week of the new year, maybe do a live stream about this. Would you like that? I think you would, and we can discuss those issues. But in the meantime, thank you for watching Panwo TV with me and sharing live this Brexit deal, sort of whatever it was, which is not all that enthusiastic. But I'm not that enthusiastic, but I'm glad I did it anyway. Hospital porters, pride and dignity, stop the New World Order.